This is the MB5, a weird British prototype that is sort of kind of a P-51 while also not being one at all. Apparently, even though this thing looks a lot like a P-51 Mustang and shares a lot of characteristics with a P-51 Mustang, it's not one at all, and in fact, apparently it's a common rumor that this thing is a sort of modified P-51 Mustang. Turns out that's not true. It is pretty easy though to draw parallels, especially with the radiator mounted on the bottom of the fuselage and behind the wings. But of course, very obviously, you look at the nose of this plane and it's got two giant contra-rotating props. Seems like the British like these contra-rotating props because there's a few planes now that have them in game. Now the MB5 in War Thunder, it's a premium rank 4 British fighter with a battle rating of 5.0. And I'll be honest, as far as performance goes, this thing is pretty outclassed. As far as what this plane does well, it doesn't do much. It is pretty fast in a straight line and it's very, very fast in a dive. I guess it can turn pretty well at high speed, but if you do decide to use that turn at that high speed, you will lose all that speed pretty quickly. And once you are slow, you're going to get outturned and out-energied by a lot of planes. If you own this plane and you insist on playing it, everybody's going to tell you to side climb. And I know that's like a joke that a lot of people will throw around when people get killed by things that are completely out of their control. But there is some merit there because altitude is almost a requirement with this plane. It doesn't really have that much going for it other than speed. To be honest, I did have some hopes for this plane, and now I see why no one really talks about it, because it's not that great. Honestly, after a few games, I was looking around at all the other planes I was fighting with and against, and I would just think, damn, I wish I was in any one of those planes instead of this one. But more than anything, I feel like that's because the whole like boom and zoom type of fighting is kind of boring to me, so I didn't really have the desire to play this thing that much more than I already have. But I do have some gameplay of me doing exactly that, so here you go. So starting out this game, surprise surprise, I climbed. A bunch of other players climbed on the other team as well, but it looks like they all got distracted by my teammates and got greedy, leaving me as the highest plane in the match. Which is good, but what's not good is my team is slowly dying off. And when I'm in a situation like this, I'm always a little bit conflicted. Do I want to go help my teammates and potentially die to somebody else that I don't see, or do I wait as long as I can and make sure I have all the advantages? And in fact, in this case, I was actually kind of split because there's like two different groups of planes on the other team. One group of 3 right below me with 2 of my teammates, and then a group of 4 to my left, or I guess actually a group of 3, the bomber doesn't really count. Ultimately, I chose to go after the group of 3 to my left. Why? Because they're at a much higher altitude than the 3 below me. And if I did dive on the group below me, there was a pretty high chance my teammates were going to be dead long before I got there. I know the group I'm heading towards is probably going to kill that bomber any second now. I was just hoping it would be sooner rather than later so they can come back towards me. Eventually, they do take out the B-26, and they lost some altitude in the process because they got greedy and were all trying to get the kill while the B-26 was losing altitude. In case all of you don't know this already, getting greedy will 90% of the time get you killed in one way or another. If you fully tunnel vision on somebody, you're probably going to die to somebody else or not realize how slow you're going like this FW-190 below me. He pitched straight up for me while he was at a lower speed and lower altitude. He's stalling out completely and I take a super easy shot. Another 190 and a 109, they both split off in opposite directions, but I'm going fast enough that I can take another shot on somebody without having to worry about dying to the other guy, get another kill because he didn't really try to dodge that, and now I gotta deal with this 190, but I'm still at a pretty high energy state, much higher than him, and even though this thing doesn't turn that great at lower speeds, the 190 really doesn't turn great at low speeds. He ends up in front of me, I take some shots and get a crit. With that, he's probably pretty crippled, and I'm not gonna have to do much to really finish off this kill. He puts his nose down, and all I gotta do is pull my nose in and take a couple more shots and take him out. You see how effective it is to have a little bit of altitude over 3 people? I had to put basically 0 effort into those kills because those guys didn't really react properly, and even if they did, I probably still would have killed them either way because after all, I still had the altitude. Up next, another 109. Once again, I have more speed and a higher altitude, so this shouldn't take that much effort. He's following me as I put my nose up, and I'm pulling away from him, but once he realizes I am pulling away from him, he puts his nose down to run away. Luckily, this is the MB5 after all, and like I said a minute ago, this thing dives extremely well, so catching this 109 in this dive is not going to be an issue. He starts to maneuver a little bit, and I'm not going to commit to following him or anything because I am just going to try and play it safe because after all, I'm not that confident in this plane in a dogfight, so I'm going to just keep my altitude up, keep the energy up as much as I can. He starts going back in the direction he was originally going, and I'm going to try and line up some shots here. Spraying a bit because I suck at aiming, and I do have quite a bit of ammo. These guns, in general, you have quite a bit of ammo with this plane. Eventually get a crit, try and finish him off right there, but have some poorly placed shots again, and then put my nose back up. I was going to dive on him one more time to finish him off, but there are 2 more 109s in the area, and I would like to have as much altitude as possible going into these fights. Eventually, one of the 109s gets close enough to where I actually have to try and kill him now. He is below me, which is going to make things much easier. Start rolling over, put my nose down, gonna try and line up a shot. He turns to go right below me, which is kind of the right move, because it's hard to hit shots when someone's directly below you. But then he puts himself right in front of my guns. As expected, I whiffed the easiest shots ever. That's kind of just how I am at this point. But now I'm gonna just extend away a bit, make sure he doesn't hit me, because I kind of thought he was gonna start shooting at me a bit here. He doesn't get quite close enough or get his nose back on time to get the shots off, so now I'm just going to put my nose back up again. I am kind of keeping an eye on the other 109 I already damaged, because I don't know how extensively he's damaged. I'm sure his engine's going to die at some point. He is leaking, but even though he is damaged and his engine is going to die at some point, he still does have guns, and I don't want to end up in front of them. The undamaged 109 flattens out and kind of just flies away for a minute. I start chasing, making sure the damaged 109 doesn't get his guns on me, and he points his nose below me. Miss some shots, and once again, I'm going to go back up. This exact same sequence kind of goes on for a minute. I mean, I was having trouble actually hitting him, and I know you guys probably don't want to watch this same sequence over and over, so I'm just going to get to the part where I actually shoot him. Like I said, exact same sequence as before. He puts his nose under me to make it hard to hit. This time I get a single bullet on him, and he's got a leak. And now, along with the other 109, he's going to try and fly back to base. Normally, I get kind of annoyed when people do this, but I don't blame him necessarily here because, I mean, after all, both of these guys are damaged. I pursue for a moment, but I don't quite catch the 109 that makes it back to the base, but the first guy damaged ends up crashing because his engine was dead, and I tapped him to finish him off because, I don't know, why not? Now, as I was finishing off the guy that was quite literally already dead, I wasn't paying attention, and the 109 that I thought made it back to base almost caught up to me, but I flew away and he ran back to his base again. Once again, that's fine, he's damaged. Honestly, I didn't really want to wait around their airfield for him to take off again, because if I did, I had a feeling he would probably just hang around his airfield and fly circles around it, and I didn't want to risk that, so I'm flying back to the middle of the map, so when he finally takes off again, he'll have to do the same. Now, it kind of slipped my mind, but there's another 109 up, and he's shooting at our ground targets. Fine with me, because that should be another free kill. As soon as I'm above him, he pitches straight up for me like that 190 did earlier in the game, which is not going to end well for him. He puts his nose back down, I put my nose back down, trying to get over on him as quickly as I can to hopefully shoot him before he gets enough speed back to actually dodge. He wasn't quite stalling out like I thought he was, but he is still pretty slow, so catching up to him is not going to be an issue. Get close enough to start shooting, start spraying a bunch because I suck at aiming, keep spraying, finally get a crit, and he's going to smack right into a tree. Very nice. Turns out he was the last one alive. I guess the other 109 decided to leave the game while he was on the airfield. Totally fine with me because that means I don't have to worry about anyone airfield camping. Now, if you're struggling in the MB5 or props in general, there is something you should take away from this. In a lot of situations, as long as you have altitude over your opponents, you're going to be fine as long as you don't tunnel vision on anybody. At least against average players in Air RB. Now, obviously there's nuances, but in general, having altitude over your opponents, especially in props, is really going to help you out and you're going to have a much easier time. Now in-game, the MB5 may not have the best fly performance, but it's still relatively enjoyable, at least for me. Although there is one thing I meant to bring up earlier actually that kind of bothered me with this plane, and that's the gun placement. Yeah, you got 4 Hispanos, but they're so far out in the wings that aiming at close range without having like super close convergence is a little annoying at times. It doesn't bother me that much, but there are a lot of people out there who like really hate wing-mounted guns. Anyway, if you want my genuine take on the MB5, I don't really like it that much. I probably won't be playing it again anytime soon, but I do think it's a pretty cool plane, and honestly I think it's a very cool looking plane. But you've heard enough of me talking about it, so what do you guys think about it? Let me know. Alright, that's gonna be it for me today. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.